Hey, Brittany, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. So the reason I wanted to speak to you today is because I find what you're doing really interesting.
Yeah.
And I met you on the volunteering program for God's Way. And I just find what you're doing and doing stuff in the spirit world really interesting. So yeah, tell us a bit about yourself and what you are doing.
Okay. Well, I'm from New Zealand and I moved to Australia probably about 5 years ago, and I found Divine Truth in 2017.
How?
Well, my ex-husband, we were engaged at the time, he found it because we were staying at his grandfather's house, and his grandfather was Christian, and he would always have the Christian TV channels going. And so one day on one of the Christian TV channels, they had an expose type thing about AJ and Mary, and about supposedly that it was a cult, and this guy was saying he was Jesus and it's in Australia and stuff like that. And so it was actually my ex-husband who found it through that. He went on to the Divine Truth YouTube channel and just started watching their videos, and then I got home from uni one day and he was like, oh, there's this guy who's saying he's Jesus and I think it might be true. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like,
I know.
like, what are you talking about? Especially because he was such a cynical, skeptical character that I was like, it's really weird that you would say that, but especially weird because you usually would never say something like that. So, and I was just like, well, I'm not going to believe it, but I'm just interested in the fact that you do, so I'll have a look. And then I just started watching the videos and
What did you start with?
I honestly can't remember. Probably some maybe Secrets of the Universe or something
most
like that.
people, I tend to start with that.
Maybe What Happens After You Die. It might have been that, ironically.
I love that too.
Yeah, so started with that, and then I was like, wow, this seems legit. Like everything he's saying is sort of answering questions that I've had, and everything that I had found up to that point, whether it was like Christianity or just other new age stuff like Zeitgeist or The Secret or stuff like that, it just had never answered everything or had never fully made sense. Like maybe little parts of it would make sense, I would think, and then other parts of it didn't. But Divine Truth was the first thing that made full sense to me, and he was just answering so many questions in such an eloquent and elaborate way that I'd never experienced before. And I just felt like, wow, I feel like this is the truth.
Yeah, it's very logical as well, which I appreciate. As it just makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah,
a lot of it does make sense.
Yeah, and then so I was listening from that point, and then the first live event they had after the time that I found it on YouTube was the 2019 assistance group. So I went to that, and then I was going to do the VSP in 2020, but it got cancelled because of COVID. But I ended up moving over anyway because I was in a relationship with.
What was the 2019 group like? What was it like when you met them and you worked with them?
Really incredible. Like I was just at the group, like it was just like a seminar style thing. So it wasn't like volunteering or anything, but I just felt like I had never met such lovely people, and they just felt so big and expansive and kind and loving, and I just felt like I've never met people like this before, and they don't feel like normal people kind of thing. It kind of solidified my feeling that what they were saying was true.
Nice. And then after that?
And then after that, I just started coming along and participating in the volunteer days because they had to cancel that VSP because of COVID, but then they started just hosting volunteer days. So I would come along to those, and I still am. I guess I've been doing that for maybe 3.5, 4 years, being really participating in that. And
that's the God's Way.
Yeah, God's Way, yeah. Which often crosses over in, volunteer activities are done at AJ and Mary or Jesus and Mary's property quite often and stuff like that. So often we'd end up having chats with them at their home and stuff. And so I've gotten to know them on a more personal level over the last few years. And
it's very inspiring how they open up their home in that way.
It really is. And I've seen them be consistently kind with me and with everybody that I've ever seen them interact with over that whole time. And just the longer I know them, the more my estimation of them goes up, because I just see them be so consistently kind and and sharing truth all the time. And it's not always things that people want to hear, but they do it in such a kind way, and it doesn't change the way that they are kind to you afterwards. Like, it doesn't change the way that they feel about you. They love you, but they're very truthful, which isn't very common.
Yeah, and it's not always pleasant to hear the truth.
That's right.
As we all know, having
That's
the feedback.
right.
So it's not like they're feeding our addictions.
No.
You don't come here and think, oh, yeah, they're saying all these nice things.
No.
And, but the truth is actually really refreshing. Well, if you're sincere enough to accept the truth.
Yeah.
But that's what I've found. It's been very inspiring to hear the truth, but in a really kind way, and you can feel the love. I think that's what you were saying, like you can consistently feel this love and kindness from them.
Yeah, yep, for myself personally and for everyone that I've seen them engage with. Yeah.
Nice. And so what have you learnt with part of the God's Way? What's been your challenges, and what have you learnt from volunteering?
There's a lot of things, so it's quite hard to answer probably, but I suppose that my challenges have been with myself and my addictions and my concept of myself and my facade and stuff like that, and spirit influence and things like that, which have all sort of been shown to me through either feedback from the directors or managers and things like that. And I don't know, going to volunteering and participating in those days is really good, because you listen to all this spiritual truth and all these teachings and stuff, but it's not till you're in actual situations with other people where you're sort of faced with your own condition and how you respond in different circumstances, and how unloving you are at times, or how much you don't want to work hard, or how bad some of your attitudes are and things like that. So I think it's really good for being able to actually get a more accurate feeling about where you are and what your attitude is and what your condition is and stuff like that. And some of the things that I've learned about myself were opposite to what I expected in a good way. Like, I've received feedback that was, there were good things about myself that I didn't realise, or things like that. So it's kind of been surprising on both ends of the scale, where it's like, oh, this stuff about me is actually really bad and out of line, but then there's other stuff about me which is actually quite good. So it's just been really good in terms of just illuminating things for me personally about my own condition, and then seeing how people who are more loving actually do things, and what it actually looks like to do things in a loving and truthful and organised and transparent way. And that's really inspiring, and I feel like I've learned a lot of skills. I feel like I'm a better worker in general in life because of it. And I just feel like it's a real gift in terms of teaching you how to be more loving, and what having a relationship with God would also look like, and how that would change how you do things in your life. Definitely. Because I've been, kind of quite a selfish person through my life. It's also challenging me in terms of learning how to give gifts and serve, and where I'm actually at with that as well.
Definitely. I feel like the same coming out here, and it really is different from being at home watching the videos, which I think many people around the world have for many years. And then it's another thing from coming out here and actually putting that into practice, because you do start to see the highlights of where actually you are quite selfish and arrogant. And how often do we really give gifts to people where we don't expect something back?
That's it.
Or we're actually doing something for somebody else's property with no expectation of getting anything back, or no, there's or your addiction's not getting met. You're just doing it for the gift of love. And I think that's quite challenging for a lot of us right now.
Yeah. It certainly hasn't been something that's just come naturally for me, and it's still something that I have to work on a lot.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
but it's an opportunity to learn how to do that, though, and through the practical things that we do, the directors or Jesus and Mary really sort of weave in the spiritual teachings. So I think it's a really unique opportunity to do that, and I feel that the things that we learn at God's Way, basically any problem that you think about in the world that you would love to see solved, it's sort of everything comes back down to the things that we're learning at God's Way, and if we could put that into practice, put those principles into practice, it could really make a big difference to the bigger scale issues that are happening in the world, no matter which one. I always think this could be solved if myself and if other people were actually putting these lessons into practice.
Yeah, they do talk about the principles a lot. You know, it has been one thing that I've heard a lot in God's Way. And the principles being number one, truth and love, humility and faith, and then action. I think most people, I mean, they have their own understanding of what this all means, but I feel like the one thing that I get asked a lot is, what is humility? I think people kind of struggle with that, and I think we all do in a way. What does humility mean to you?
Well, I suppose from what I've learned from Divine Truth, I've sort of taken it to mean that it's feeling your emotions. But I think that's a very simplified and sort of almost inaccurate way to look at it. And I'm not really sure. Like I feel like I'm trying to develop humility, but I don't feel that I understand it in my heart. And so, you know, when I think about humility, I'm often thinking, okay, it's that I need to be connecting to my feelings and feeling what I actually feel. So that's where I'm starting with, but I feel like it's going to be something that actually has a lot of scope that I don't yet understand. So I'm sort of in feels like the baby phase of it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm just trying to develop for myself, because even that is proving challenging enough. Or I'm resistive enough to even just that part of it. So
yes. I think when you really have it takes a while for the principles to really get in our heart. We can understand them logically, which is I think that we do when we watch these videos, but actually it's another thing, like I said, putting it into practice and really feeling these principles in our heart.
Especially when the shit's hitting the fan in your life and you're trying to work out what to do. What would the principles do, and what would truth do, and what would be loving to this person? What would be loving to me though? And I'm often like, okay, I'm skipping the humility step. And I think if I was feeling more and praying more and being sincere in that prayer and in trying to feel what I really feel, then the other things would become more clear. It sort of almost feels a bit like a gateway principle to being able to make sense of the other principles, perhaps.
Yeah. And your relationship with God, where were you brought up? Were you brought up an atheist, Christian? Like what has been your relationship with God when you were young, and how has that changed now?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I had a relationship with God when I was young, and I wasn't raised atheist, but I wasn't raised religious either. My mum, she had a strong belief and openness to the spirit world, and Mary sort of said to me that that's what, and Jesus, they both said to me that that's what sort of kept my mediumship open. So there was this reference constantly, always growing up to the angels that are around, and it wasn't just like a throwaway comment. It was like a real thing. Like, we've got the angels around, you can ask them for help with this, the angels helped me with that today, blah blah blah, all the time. It was just common, as you would talk about somebody else in your life, she would talk about them. And so she had an openness to the spirit world, and she was also quite afraid of dark spirits and stuff like that, but I feel that she didn't really understand all of it. Like, most people don't have any education about it, but some people are aware that it's there. So that was her. So there was no really reference to God. My dad felt that when you die, and that's it. And so there wasn't much talk about God, but I was always very drawn to hearing about it. Like, we would have religious studies sometimes at school. throughout my schooling, and I'd always feel quite attracted to that. And then I went to church. I just started going to church for a bit when I was about 15, and I really liked it, and I really wanted it to make sense, but some of it didn't, and I wanted it to, but it just didn't. But I still felt drawn to it, and I felt drawn to this idea of God and Jesus and stuff like that. And then there was this one day when I was at church and everyone was singing, and, you know, I was all just, like, new to this. Like, most of the, like, people my age, the teenagers and stuff there, had been raised Christian, and I was just sort of like this newbie, and there was all this singing happening and stuff. And then I just, some people had their hands sort of, like, open and sort of palms a bit, like, kind of raised upwards, I suppose. Not, like, fully arms up and everything, but just kind of hands a little bit kind of open in a receptive manner. And so I liked that, so I did it, and there was just the singing happening, and I just felt this, like, open feeling towards God. Like, I didn't consciously I don't feel like I consciously asked anything, but I just felt like I just want to be receptive to God right now, and that. And then all of a sudden I was just on the floor, just really crying, and I didn't understand why. And so, and then afterwards one of the girls said to me, "Oh, was that your first time receiving Jesus?" And I was like... And because I didn't know what just happened, and I was like, "Oh, she must know, like, she's been Christian, you know, raised Christian." And so I was like, "Yeah, I think, yeah." Just, yeah. Because it's like, oh, maybe that was what happened. And then, then I had this sort of, like, fondness of Jesus from that point. But still not overly religious or anything. I liked the idea of only having sex with one person, and that there's one person for you and stuff like that. You know, I liked these kind of concepts. And that's not how I've ended up living my life, but there was an attraction to sort of some of the things that felt quite pure and stuff like that. So, and then I just was questioning to myself, because, you know, the pastor would be talking about Adam and Eve and the creation of the world and stuff, and I personally didn't feel like I believed that God created the world. And then I was like, well, you know, I don't believe in the Big Bang Theory either, because everything's so complex that it seems... you know, unreasonable to think that this all just sort of came together by itself. It feels like it needed a designer to me. And then so I was thinking, well, was there one designer, or was there multiple? Like, was the designers aliens, or, like, what was it, higher intelligence or something? And then I was just sort of looking around and thinking, well, everything feels very similar to me. Like, all the creations have a lot of things in common, and you can see that in nature and in humans and in ecosystems and stuff like that. And so I felt that I came to the conclusion that there was one creator, not multiple creators, because it felt like it would be more chaotic and less, you know, similar if there were multiple creators. So anyway, I came to the conclusion in myself that there was a creator, and the creator was a scientist. So I suppose I just had that sort of intellectual feeling, like, there's a God, but that I didn't really know much about him. And so now, having learned divine truth, I'm sort of trying to establish a relationship with God, and I have felt things from God personally for me that have been surprising, and I want to develop that relationship. Although I feel like there's a lot of resistance in the way as well.
And what's the resistance?
I think just not wanting to have to change my life too much, and not wanting to have to give up certain things that I want to keep doing, or not having to feel bad about things that I've done that are bad, or it's sort of it's like Mary was saying yesterday in a discussion that they held yesterday, where it's kind of like the faith is still in the addictions and doing things a certain way. And I have a lot of faith in that, and the faith in trusting God. And if I really, you know, have this relationship with him, I know my life is going to change. And if it changes, then I'm not going to be doing the things that I'm currently doing, or that I have faith in doing. And so I think that's a big block for me, just where my faith is. So I would say my blocks are probably faith and humility, although I know that all of the things sort of go together hand in hand, but that's what it feels like to me.
And sometimes humans are really frightened of change. And also, like, you know, the talk that Jesus gave a few weeks ago about being uncomfortable.
Yes.
It was such a great talk. We
Yes.
just love comfort.
That's it.
Our addiction
That's
is
it. Be
comfort.
uncomfortable.
Be uncomfortable.
That's it.
And it's something that I see in society, that we, especially now with technology and our modern day society, we just don't like to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I think that really applies to me, you know, really strongly, as it does with most people. But yeah, that's definitely preventing me from wanting to just go fully into this thing with God and just really have, you know, an emotional breakdown and really get into things properly and really set myself on this, you know, path.
Because like you said, it's, even though we all want this short-term addiction of comfort, if we can just see the long-term goal, then comfort will be our state naturally in the future when we go through these uncomfortable feelings that we're resisting so much.
Yeah.
And we don't want to give them up. But actually, if we just gave them up and surrendered into them and asked God for forgiveness and really went into these emotions, then our long-term state would actually be comfort, but not comfort in our addictions.
Yeah.
So it makes logical sense.
It makes logical sense. And then in practice, it's something that I'm fighting very hard against. So, yeah.
Yes. So you mentioned the angels and mediumship when you were younger. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you're up to now? This is why I find it so interesting, and your job and how that's kind of, you know, maybe as well helping you in this way.
Yeah. So, well, I guess my job is I'm a funeral director. So in that job, I have a lot to do with dead people and people that have just passed. And so I do everything from undertaking, so going and collecting the body from wherever they passed.
And this is your business?
No. So I work for a business.
Okay.
Yep, in the town where I live. And so I do the undertaking, and then we take them back to our mortuary, and I've done a lot of mortuary prep and working on bodies and things like that. And then I sit with the families and make the arrangements for the funeral. So in that, I guess maybe I'm starting the story backwards a little bit, but I suppose I've always sort of had this openness to mediumship, which my mum, as I mentioned before, my mum sort of helped keep that open in me, because everyone's mediumistic, but by the time you're an adult, you know, people are more shut down to varying degrees than others. And so my upbringing kept me pretty open. And so it's always been a thread throughout my life, and I haven't always realised that I was a mediumistic person, which seems strange even to myself looking back on it, because there was always this thread throughout life of being aware that things were happening, you know, that there were spirits around, or being frightened of it, or, you know, all sorts of experiences with spirits really. But it wasn't until I found Divine Truth in 2017 that it really started to make sense. And, you know, having the education and the truth about it just really made everything make a lot more sense, and I felt less afraid and more, just educated, which really, really helped. And then I was going to mediumship group that Mary was sort of teaching, and so I was attending that fairly regularly, and that helped as well. They sort of gave me the feedback that I'm pretty mediumistic, and more so than I was realising. And then I had this feeling that I would really love to do mediumship and work with people just after they've passed, and work with their families, and that it could be really amazing to have a funeral business where you're doing environmental regeneration projects and incorporating this element of the funeral industry into it. So you could be doing natural burials or human composting and doing sort of terrace projects or something like similar to what God's Way does, and then ending up with a beautiful forest instead of just a gravestone cemetery. And I disagree with a lot of the things that we do in the funeral industry, in the sense of, there's a lot of toxicity and unnecessary waste, and there's a lot of wood being used to make the coffins, and then they've got these sort of plastic veneer things on them, and then they've got the plastic handles, and then they've got the polyester lining, and then you're pumping embalming fluid and formaldehyde into people. And in Australia, we don't embalm every person. I know that some places in the States, they actually embalm everyone, I believe. But that prevents the body from breaking down for another 25 years, you know, and then when it does break down, all of those toxins and everything and chemicals leach into the soil. And it's actually, I read something where it was like, if you bury a body that's been embalmed and it starts breaking down, those no, that wasn't even a body that's been embalmed. That was just a normal body. There's so much ammonia and heavy metals in the average human these days that if you just bury their body, they don't even have to be embalmed, in the ground, nothing around it can really grow for like 2 years.
Wow.
Because it's just that heavy with toxins and stuff like
because
that.
Because of what we're now ingesting into our
Yes.
systems. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's quite toxic, and that's why cremation's actually pretty bad for the environment as well. Not only because it uses a lot of fuel to actually have that fire going for so long. So whether it's whatever you're using, like gas, we use gas where I work.
And how long does it take to burn a body?
Usually about 2 or 3 hours, but depends on the size of the person.
Okay.
Yeah. So usually no longer than 3 hours. And then all of the, I guess, the smoke from that is going up into the air, and so it's sort of been seen as a more environmentally friendly option, but it's also kind of not. And so you've got the big two. There's the burial, there's the cremation, and neither of them are that good for the environment. But there are cool things happening where people are doing natural burials, so they're not putting anything plastic or that won't break down into the ground. And so you could have like a wicker casket or something like that, or you can wrap the body in a shroud that has mycelium spores infused into it. So so then it will grow some fungi, and the fungi helps break down the body, but it also helps filter out the heavy metals and all of that, so it's not so bad for the ground.
Great. And where's that being done?
Look, that is something that was created by a woman in America, and I'm not sure that there's any place that's specifically doing that. I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but I think it's just an option that people can order that if that's what they want. And then natural burial is something that's not widely legal. So I think it is legal in Queensland now, but it needs to be legalised in more places so that it can be done that way, because it's a lot more environmentally friendly. And then there's also the human composting, which is there's this really cool organisation called Recompose in the States, and this woman who was an architect has designed these sort of, it looks like honeycomb, these pods, and you can lay the body in and you put organic matter on top, so like straw and I think some mycelium like sprouts and stuff, and tuck them into the pod, and then the body breaks down into soil, and then you've got soil.
Brilliant.
So the family can have the soil, or they can send the soil to an environmental regeneration project. So that's what they do. That's not legal in Queensland, but I'm just working on contacting the people that need to be contacted and just sort of like lobbying for that legislation change.
Great.
So that would be that's a cool potential for the future, because I think especially with the way that the world's going, we're running out of arable topsoil, and it's going to be a problem for growing food in the future. And I think that people would turn their noses up at growing food in soil that's came from a dead body, but I think scientifically it's just a scientific process. By the time it's soil, it's soil. That's my opinion, and I think that we might not have the luxury of worrying too much about it in the future. Yeah. But my idea was like, imagine if you did that, and then you could give all the soil, because I think from one body it can make about 4 wheelbarrows of soil. That's including with the mulch and the organic matter that you put on top, but that's 4 wheelbarrows of soil per body. Yep. So it's sort of the only option. Like, I like the natural burial option too, because it's not so contaminating, but it's the only option where you're actually creating a resource rather than just using or contaminating resources.
Yeah. So you think about all the people that have died
Yeah.
over the last 100 years or maybe more, and the amount of pollution that's gone into the soil.
And it just creeps me out how long it takes everything to break down. You know, we're putting them in these coffins, so not only does that use a lot of timber to make, it prevents the decaying and the breakdown process for a lot longer. And then, there's a lot of things in the body and in the way that we're burying people that even when breakdown finally does happen, it's really toxic to the environment around it and to the soil and to the microbes and stuff that are in the soil. So I started thinking to myself, wouldn't it be cool if there was a business that did this in a more environmentally friendly way, but also incorporated the mediumship in? Because, you know, it would be great to talk to people about that and talk to the spirit as well who's just passed.
Yes.
So then I said to myself, okay, well, I better get myself a job in this industry and see if this is something that I actually enjoy and if I would actually like to do this, because in theory I'd be okay with dead people, but how do you know until you've actually done it? And in theory this is a great idea, but is it something that I'm actually interested in? So so about a year and a half ago I started working in the funeral industry and doing that type of work, and now I'm a funeral director and I love it. And so getting back to the point of the mediumship is, I often do mediumship at work, where I'm talking to the people that have passed, when I'm doing the mortuary work on them, or when I'm just having some alone time. Usually when I'm having alone time with their body, it's a good time, you know, because they're around and they're often there and we can just have a quiet chat. And so
they must be so happy that you can speak to them.
Yeah. I think that it's a relief for people to be spoken to after they've passed, because a lot of times their family's not speaking to them anymore. And and I think although a lot of people, I think because they've so recently passed, they don't even really question the communication either. It's sort of like, oh yeah, you know, and now I've passed and now, you know, this girl's a professional in this industry and she can just talk to me, or, you know, they don't, it's not, I almost think that a lot of the times they don't realise the uniqueness of the situation. And it's just a real privilege to be able to talk to them, especially when they've just passed, and just talk a little bit about what I've learned from Divine Truth and about the basics of the spirit life, and then I just try and always invite a spirit to come who's going to be able to be helpful and talk to them and stuff like that, because when I'm at work, the chances of me being interrupted and stuff like that is high, and so I just try as quickly as I can just to make a rapport with them and have a chat with them, and also invite a friend and introduce them, so that they've got someone in the spirit world that they can talk to.
Great.
Yeah.
And are they open to this?
Yeah, a lot of them are. Some of them aren't. And sometimes I say, oh, you know, if you're open to it, I'll bring a friend who can talk. And I sort of simultaneously say a prayer and ask my guide to help bring the most appropriate person. And I ask that it's someone that's on the divine love path, just because I figure that someone on the divine love path will tell the person all of their options. Like, you could have a relationship with God if you want, or you don't have to, whereas someone's on the natural love path will just give them probably that, the natural love option. Yep. So that's sort of my intention when I am asking for someone to come. And so, sometimes people come and, they just start chatting straight away, or sometimes I feel like I lose them a little bit, or sometimes I feel like I open up the floor for the helpful spirit to come, but then the person's like random family members or something will swoop in, and then the person will go off with them. It sort of depends, but a lot of people are open to it. Yeah.
Great, wonderful. And have they ever come back afterwards to get some more help from you, or is it more just like a one-time only?
It's a good question. I think sometimes when I think back to them, or, you know, sometimes I'll just have affectionate feelings towards people that I've talked to and wonder how they're going, then they pop back in. But usually a lot of my time is just spent with the new people, because there's so many people dying all the time. Not a lot of repeat conversations, I would say, at this point. Yeah, which would be cool. Maybe I should focus on that more.
Yeah, and just check in, see how they're doing.
Yeah. It's really lovely. It's really lovely. You know, sometimes people are really surprised to receive some help, or surprised that, you know, this that a brighter spirit, or, you know, someone who's appears to be like an angel would come. And it's really, it brings tears to my eyes a lot when I'm working. So I'm often in the mortuary just sort of like having tears and hoping I don't get interrupted.
And then with the family, do you then give any messages to the family? I guess it depends if they're open to this or not.
And that's where it would be really good to have my own business, because then I can just be straight up and say, look, this is what I do, and if you're open to it, then we'll talk about it. But I find it's a little bit tricky, I suppose, when I work for someone else and it's their business, and they're not necessarily, people aren't necessarily asking for it and stuff like that. So sometimes I think, what should I say something? Should I not? Sometimes I do, if it just feels, I just sort of gauge the situation and say something if it feels right. Yeah. So that sometimes happened, and people were, often quite emotional about it. Yeah. But I would really like to be more open about that and talk more about that, and also just do mediumship as its own thing, like as a job on its own.
Yes.
Just doing mediumship for people. Yeah.
And what's your sort of goal or your vision with your mediumship?
Well, I would like to be able to just do any sort of mediumship for people. Like there are a lot of mediums out there already who are super accurate and super clear, but don't have the education of, about truth, like the divine truth aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I feel very, very lucky to have had this education. I'd really like to share that with other people, and I'd like to share it with the spirits and share it with the people on earth, and, tell people that, they don't have to engage a medium to be having communication with their dead loved one and stuff like that. So I really would like to be able to help the spirits, because there's not a lot of focus on that. Like even with spirits even with mediums who are really clear mediums, they're often not helping the spirits, and I think that's just because of not having an education of how. And so there's not a lot of focus on the spirits. It's sort of like they're focused on serving the people that are on earth and sort of making them feel reassured that, there's life after death, and their loved one is, still around and stuff like that. But there's a lot more to it than that, or there could be a lot more to it than that. It could be a lot more educational, and people could be learning in advance before they go to the spirit world more about the spirit life. They could be having a better relationship with their person who's passed, and the person who's passed could be having an education about how, what their spirit life could look like and how they could progress, or how it works, and the fact that they can still have a relationship with their loved ones on earth, but it's a better idea to not get earthbound and stuck with them, and not move on in your own spirit life as well. Because if you think, like, how many people pass and don't have any education whatsoever about the spirit life, and so it's like you pass and then you're immediately met with the realization that you're still alive, but there's still no education about what next, like what to do next, how the spirit world works. Even some for that there is a spirit world and is a spirit life, like some of them just stay with their families because that's all they've known. And I think there's a lot of potential with mediumship to help in those situations, because the people are so accustomed to their earth life, and they're still so like embroiled in their earth life, they're more comfortable talking to someone who's on earth. So I'm just sort of, there on earth, able to talk to them and then say, there's a spirit life as well, and can I bring someone who can talk to you about that, who knows more about that than me? So it's like, I feel like there's a lot of potential for it, even though I'm not very spiritually developed in love, or my own spiritual condition. There's still value in being able to be sort of like a point of contact between the spirit who's passed and the spirit who can help them. A lot more than I can. Yeah.
And what would you say to people who still have no idea about the spirit world, or like how would you explain it to them, like what actually happens?
I would advise them to watch Divine Truth videos about what happens after you die, because that's going to be the best way to understand it. And, obviously they can describe it a lot better than I can. But in my words, I would say that it's a fact that there's a spirit world. I feel, I'm not that sure about a lot of things, but I am sure that there's a spirit world. And so it's like, to me, it's a fact that life doesn't stop when you die. There's a spirit world. There's a place where everyone is, and there's the provision of being able to keep the communication open. It was not supposed to be that everything just stops when someone passes. And yeah, in my experience with all of this, with Divine Truth and doing mediumship group with Mary and doing my job as I do it, it's really helped grow my belief and faith and understanding of what Jesus and Mary teach, because I see it, I put it into practice even though it was just something that I'd been taught in the beginning. I put it into practice when I'm speaking with spirits, and then I can feel what's happening with them. I can feel the other spirits coming. And it's really grown my belief in what Jesus and Mary are teaching, because I've seen it over and over and over it be true. And I've seen the process that spirits go through, and I can, when I'm channeling a spirit, or even sometimes when I'm just talking to a spirit, I can feel, it's almost like I can feel their feelings and see what they see and experience their experience as they experienced it. And so when they're in the spirit world and I'm talking to them and things are changing for them because they're feeling emotions and stuff like that, I guess it just makes me believe, and I can feel more and more the truth of what Jesus and Mary are teaching. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but to me it's just that there's a life after you pass. It just continues, and the spirit world is as real as earth. If not, to me sometimes it feels more real almost. Like when I'm doing mediumship, it almost feels like I go from living in one room in the house to being opened up to the entire house. That's what it feels like. So yeah, and I think I would encourage people to have faith or entertain the possibility that that's true.
Yeah, because otherwise they're going to get very shocked when life does end in this physical realm. Yeah. And then they realise it goes on. I agree with you. I think it's so important to let people know the message that there is life after death. Because that's obviously when, what I feel that life really begins. Like, that's it for eternity. You're going to be there for a long, long time. Like, this is just like a tiny little dress rehearsal for us compared to what is going to be. And the more people that have this knowledge that there is life after death, I feel like they're not in so much shock when they pass over. And if they're not in so much shock, then they might be a bit more open to receiving the help from guides or from family members or whoever that comes to actually give them some advice. And
100%.
then I just feel, and I don't know if you would agree, but I do feel that if they are a bit more open to this, it could change their course.
Yes.
In the spirit world, it could make a huge difference.
Yes, and it would change the way that you live your life as well on earth.
For sure.
Yeah, and not only that, but if people are open to the idea that there is a spirit world and that spirits are influencing our lives on earth as well, there'll be more openness to your guides and the guardian and the good spirits that are around, but also an openness to realising that there are other spirits around too that are more malevolent or unhelpful, even if they're not really, really trying to be unhelpful. They're still being unhelpful, not realising that they are. And I think there's a lot of benefit to understanding that there is a spirit world, even in just for your earth life as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I there's those other videos that Jesus does, a Mary spirit influence, which I really like, and I think they're great, because even though, like just what you said, I kind of always knew in a way that there was life after death before Divine Truth, but I was much more into the natural love and New Age philosophies. And I always thought that having kind of natural love guides was always a good thing. But actually, even getting clear on that, it's because a lot of them, I know from my personal experience, they were there to help me not feel.
Me too.
So actually, they weren't, even though I thought at the time, oh, this is really nice, I've got all these lovely natural love guides that are helping me not to feel. But actually, in the long run, it does the opposite to what we really want to achieve if we want to get closer to God. Yeah. And it can be uncomfortable, as it was for me 10 years ago when my natural love guides stepped out the way. And then I had natural love guides, and I did go through a period of being really uncomfortable because they were feeding a lot of my addictions.
Yes.
So it was quite uncomfortable. That transition was quite uncomfortable. But however, now I'm so grateful because it's led me on to many other things and many other openings and feeling and getting a bit more real.
Yeah,
slightly.
Yeah,
slightly.
Yeah.
What's been some of your like standout stories, or a standout, or something that you can remember? You know, that where somebody's passed over and you found something out, or I don't know, some kind of.
Yeah, there's a lot of them actually. I'm not sure which one to choose. I think there was one man that stood out. I mean, there's been so many, but there have been a few. But this one man, he had passed, and I was talking to him when I was doing the mortuary prep, and I could just feel things about his life and just that he had been in the military and stuff like this. And then it's always cool when you have this experience with the person before you've had any contact with their family, and then you get told things about their life, or you feel things about their life, and then it gets confirmed later when you meet the family and talk with them. But the reason why this one stood out so much to me was because he was really gentle, and I have a lot of, as we all do, intergender issues to work through, and this process has really opened me up to a lot of different type of men. And this man was really gentle, and I just said to him, I was chatting with him, can't remember exactly what about, but then I said, and there's someone here to talk to if you want to. And I said, he's an angel. Sometimes I just describe them like that because that's what I grew up describing them as, and really by angel I just mean bright spirit. And I said, there's an angel here to talk to you. And he was just so humble and so not expecting such a thing. And he said, oh, an angel, like that was surprising enough. And then, to talk to me. Yeah, and I said yes, and that really still brings tears to my eyes because it was so sweet. And then what often happens is that when I've had these interactions with the spirits and have a good rapport with the spirits, their families tend to like me without really understanding why. Like straight off the bat, the families will feel really warm to me because the spirit is influencing. The spirit is there with his wife going, we like this girl. So the spirit. And then so the wife, she brought in biscuits to say thank you and stuff like that. It was really sweet. But different. There's such a range of things that happen. Some things are sweet and some things are funny and some things are really deep and like heavy. Because there's different things. There was a guy who passed in a car crash and he was really worried about his son, and I was there, with my co-worker to collect his body, and so we're trying to. There's the fire brigade there to retrieve his body out of the car, and then there's the police there, and you're doing all this paperwork, but then at the same time I'm speaking to the spirit because that feels like the most important part of the job to me. Yep. And he was talking about his son and this and that, and I introduced him to a spirit and stuff, and then found out later the story with the son and the complications with the mum, and it all sort of made sense what the man was saying once I heard the nuances of what was happening with the family situation. So and then there was one other time where
I'm just thinking, God, that must be quite tough, because like if somebody's telling you information from the spirit world, like let's just say he's like, I'm really worried about my son because the mother is abusive or whatever it was, let's just say, then like what do you do with that information?
It's tricky because I've had things like that, and I've had things where there was a guy who had passed and it was a so-called suspicious suicide, but the guy, I felt that it wasn't. I felt that it was a murder and who had done it. And then I was driving the body to the coroner, and I was talking to the spirit of the guy, and he was saying,
he got murdered.
This is who killed me. I didn't kill myself. And I said, I didn't think so. And it's tricky because what do you do?
What do you do with that? Because I mean, if you went to the police and said, oh, by the way, they would just...
Even if they believed you, what can they do? This chick who works at the funeral home said that it was, and so it's like I really would like to fine tune my mediumship so much that I could get to the point where I could actually be of use in terms of, helping with crimes and things like that. But you need to be very accurate. You need to be able to give them stuff they can really work with to get proof of things. So that's an aspiration that I have for myself. But it is tricky. It's sometimes tricky. I'm like, I have this information, but
where do you go with it? What do you do with it?
Yeah. And I have hope for the future potentially that if my mediumship gets good enough and I could be of assistance in that way, that I don't know, you never know what relationships would open up with people who work in law enforcement, or you never know what doors might open, I think. So I still have hope for that.
Yeah, that's true. I think if people do, I feel even now, and maybe it's just the bubble I live in, but even, talking about spirits 15 years ago, I was looked at as if I was crazy. Whereas now when I speak about spirits, I don't get that look as much anymore. Like something has changed.
It has.
Something has changed. Like people that I grew up with thought I was crazy 15 years ago, where now they don't think I'm so crazy anymore. I don't know. Something has definitely changed. And so I think if it's moved on this much in 15 years, give it another 15 years. And it may, who knows, it may be sort of common knowledge. And it's, we talk about it like having a cup of tea, and it's just normal.
And that's my vision of, if I could have an end goal for the world, it would be that this mediumship thing is not uncommon. It's not assigned to just mediums, these people who can somehow it would be an open just everyday thing, like just any other everyday part of life.
And I always say that to people. I think it's super important. Everyone is a medium.
Yes.
It's not just for these apparently special, gifted woo-woo type people, that people have this, No, and it's not. And it's nothing even, it's just a gift that we all have, that God gave us all to be able to speak to our spirit brothers and sisters.
I think it would be so great.
Yeah, and it's just a case of us having that desire. And of course, some people have more of a desire in their soul. But if we actually go through the fear of actually being able to communicate to our brothers and sisters, then it just does sort of become more normal. And also definitely seeing Mary channeling over the years, like the amount of information and communication and learning and teaching that she's been able to give to the world through the channelings is wow. Some of her channelings, most of her channelings I'm always crying at, because they're just so profound.
I know.
And incredible, like I'm in awe. They're just like they're next level.
It's such a gift. I feel like mediumship is such a gift to everyone involved, like the people listening, the medium, the person on earth, the people in the spirit world. It's just everyone can benefit from it, and it's just such a beautiful gift.
Yeah, it is. As long as that the ego doesn't get involved, because I also see that mediumship, especially in the New Age communities, has become a little bit egocentric, and then they go off on a tangent, and then actually it becomes quite dangerous. I've known a few people in the community that I live at home, because it's quite New Agey there, where the mediums have been giving them addictive channelings, and it has actually veered some of the people onto another path.
Yes.
So I think it really does need refinement.
Yeah.
Because also you can be given over messages that actually is infringing on their free will or on their true spiritual path as well. So we have a lot to learn, I feel, with mediumship.
I do too, and I feel like it's really important for people to still remain discerning, because in my history, before I found Divine Truth, I went to a medium a couple of times, and it was exactly like what you just said, where she said a few things, and it really... because she was accurate about some of the mediumship that she did, and she was accurate about details about a friend of mine who had passed, I then had this feeling like, this woman knows more than me, so I should just trust everything she says. And that's, like you said, quite dangerous.
Especially because a lot of the mediums don't actually know who they're talking to. They think they're talking to, they think they're talking to a highly evolved spirit when they're actually not. Yeah. And I think this is the discerning part that mediums will also have to be humble to. Yes. That actually maybe not all the messages are always correct and loving.
It reminds me of something that, I can't remember if it was Mary or Corny who actually came up with it, but it became a little bit of a slogan for the mediumship group. It was "Be the bridge, not the traffic." And I think like a lot of mediums become sort of like you go to a medium and they just start giving you life advice that they think you should do. It's not even mediumship anymore.
Yeah.
So I suppose for my own self and my goals for my developing my mediumship is that I be the bridge and not the traffic, and just step aside and be doing actual mediumship.
And giving people education rather than telling them what they should do in their life, because then it's an infringement of their free will. And of course, God has given us all free will. And as you know now, probably, that celestials wouldn't do that. Yes, because they want you to use your will in the way that you want to use your will.
Yes.
And so if you do go to a medium that's saying, hey, you should do this and you should do that.
You should marry this guy.
You're going to do this. And it's then you almost know, okay, hang on, alarm bells here.
Exactly.
There's some alarm bells here, because a celestial guide would never infringe with your free will. So that's also a good way to kind of know in a way who you're speaking to. So just to finish off, when you're bringing a guide in, so when somebody's passed over and you're bringing a guide in, are you specifically asking for a divine truth guide, like a celestial guide?
Yeah, so they don't have to be celestial, but I do ask that it is someone that's on the divine love path.
Okay.
Just for the reasons that I said before, just because I figure that someone on the divine love path will give the person all of their options. And so I'm not sure that that's 100% what happens all the time, because I know that it's a lot to do with your own desire, like your true desire in your soul. And so, I wouldn't consider myself to be someone who's firmly on the divine love path. Like I'm interested in it and I would like to be on it, and I would like to develop more in that direction and be more connected to my divine love spirit guide and stuff. So I'm not always sure that that's exactly what's happening, but that is what I ask. I do. That is my sort of prayer. So I do feel a lot of times that it is what's happening. And then I just will ask for the most appropriate person. So relatable, usually like same gender, same ethnic background, same experiences, same, so that it's relatable for the person.
So there's some rapport that could.
Yeah. So I don't know who that person is, but I just trust my guide and my prayer to sort of sort it out. And then I feel someone come and I'm like, okay, there's a guy here, or there's a woman here, or So that's sort of how I do it.
And then of course that person can choose if they want to do it God's way.
Exactly.
And allow God into their heart, or they want to do it the natural love way.
Yeah.
And to sum up, why would you choose, if you were a spirit and you passed over, why would you be choosing the divine love way, the divine truth way, and not the natural love way?
Yeah, well, I to be honest, don't know if I would at this point in my state. I'd like to think I would, but in all reality, I know that it's not firmly in my heart yet. So in theory, I would choose the divine love path. Well, I suppose, I personally do have a soft feeling about God, because some of the personal things that I've received from God have been very personal to me, and sometimes I just feel like, my gosh, I wouldn't want, if I couldn't have a relationship with God now, it feels like all the colour would drain out of everything. So part of me does have those sorts of feelings, but part of me, like I explained, is still resistive. But I would want to be choosing the divine love path, I would hope, because one, I feel like it's blatantly the faster path. Like I've had experiences where I've channeled spirits that were in a really dark position and then felt them like a year or two later, and I'm like, whoa, you moved faster than I thought. And it's because there was this direct engagement with God. So I think it's faster and more beneficial, but I just think, even if it's just in theory, from what I've learned from Divine Truth, is that it's the option where you have a limitless life ahead of you. And I think that it would be a real shame to not take God up on that opportunity while it's available and receive his love and have a personal relationship with him. I do think it would be a real shame not to. It sort of feels like it would be, like I said, almost colourless in comparison.
Yeah, for sure. Lovely. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanted to add before Oh, just a bit about your mediumship and maybe where we can
Sure.
find you.
Sure. Well, the website is a work in progress. It should be up by the end of this month. So I'll be able to send you a link that maybe
Great.
can get
Yeah,
put
I'll
somewhere.
share.
Yeah. So that'll probably be the way. So once that's up, I'll get it to you.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And people will email you, and is it donation? Is it paid? What's the...
Yeah, it'll be by donation.
Okay.
Yep. And so they'll be able to email me, or we're going to have a something on the website where you can send an inquiry or make a booking or something like that. So
Okay,
we're just
great.
ironing it out.
Just lastly, what's the kind of premise with the donation model?
So I feel like I want to do it by donation because mediumship itself is such a gift, and I want this to be a gift. And also I can't claim that I'm always going to be able to perhaps perform the way that the people want, So I want to leave it open to people. I don't want to exclude anyone just because they can't afford it, they're not going to get help, that kind of thing. I want to leave it open to people and what they feel it's worth to them. If they want to or can donate, then obviously that's amazing, because if I could do this as a job, it would just be the most wonderful life in the world, because you could just be doing this all the time and just so it's a funny thing for me, because people have donated to me for mediumship when I've done it for them, and I feel almost like, no, I can't accept your donation, because it was a gift. Like, it was a gift. I was like, almost, it was a gift to me that I could even do that for you, and then they feel like, no, it was a gift to me, so I want to give you something. And so it's kind of this weird feeling to almost be paid for something that feels so like not a job and not work like, but I would like to do it that way, and if I could live that way, it would just be awesome, because it's just more time to do mediumship.
Yeah.
So, and I think that could have a lot of benefit, especially if I'm developing and having my own personal spiritual progress. The more I do that, the more I can, be of service. So,
For sure. And it is adding value, especially if you're giving a message to somebody's family or you're helping them in the spirit world. It's a huge gift, and there's value on that. And at the moment, we have value in money, but it might not be that case in the future. But it's just the way it is right now.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brittany.
Thank you so much for having me.